and welcome back to the Robust Ramblings podcast. And today we are having a absolute fantastic conversation with a good friend of mine from high school. Her name's Lesego. She is a qualified CA in South Africa, and she's a spokesperson, motivational speaker, you name it. And yeah, welcome to the podcast, Lesego. Thanks so much.
Love it. That intro motivational speaker. I need to put that on my bio. I have everything but motivational speaker. I just have it as speaker, but what, Sergio, after this intro,
You know,
it's
that
have it.
I just added motivational speaker because I just felt so motivated after like a 10-minute chat before this. And I'm like, sheesh, girl, like, yo, I remember you
I,
being quite soft spoken in high school. And now all of a
yo,
sudden you're like, yeah, let's get it, boys. I'm like, yeah, you go, girl. And I'm like, sheesh. I'm
every
like,
time I go to Clark store, people are like, when did you become this person? I'm like, guys, I grew into this person. I was never this person. Please don't be
yeah,
deceived at the
yeah,
confidence now. A lot of life changes have happened for me to get here. But thank
yeah.
you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Lesejo, and just thanks for the wisdom that you're going to impart as well. We really appreciate it. So, Lesejo, let's get into it, okay? Yeah, just give a background on who you are, what you've done, and where you come from, where you studied. Obviously, I already mentioned that you're a CA. So yeah, you take the floor.
Happiness. So I am Lesego, as Sergio said. It's so crazy because he's saying that we know each other from high school, but I am not originally from Gauteng. I'm from the Northwest Province in a small town called Klerksdorp, in an even smaller township called Kanana.
La
And
la la la.
in high school, I wasn't as, I guess, outspoken as I am right now. High school for me was such a, I think, a quiet, fun time where I was getting to know myself. And being a teenager, I think you all taking different identities and trying to discover yourself. So when it came to my career, I actually didn't know what I wanted to become. I was always diligent in high school, always trying to be in the top 10. I had really smart friends and I wanted to like be like them. So whatever they did, I studied, right? So when it came to choosing, I guess, subjects in like grade 10, 11, 12, my smartest friends chose like a crazy combination. It was accounting, physics, life science, and maths. And the reason for that is wherever you land, it should be great. That's variety over there. So I
Yeah.
did what they, and most of them wanted to go into medicine. I guess because of maybe family, friends, or
Mm.
mentors that they know that are in the medical field. But for me, there wasn't anyone that I looked up to within my family. So when it came time to apply to universities, I remember in our physics class, we had to study elements, and one of the elements was beryllium. And you had to like go into the element and say, what is it used for? Um, what careers can you go into? And beryllium is used in like medicine, and you become a biochemical engineer. And I thought it would be such a smart thing to apply for. So I applied at WITS and I applied for biochemical engineering. I don't even know what it actually is in general. It just
Um, I
sounded,
was I was legitimately gonna ask, what is that even?
hey, just make medicine, Sergio. That's all I found out in my project. My project said they made medicine and they looked like they made lab coats, and it looked like a serious employment. I couldn't even pronounce it at that time. And I thought it would make me stand out because everybody said medical doctor. It didn't have a ring to it. So I was like, biochemical engineer. That's the one. And I remember the way I was so confident, I didn't apply at any other university or for any other subject, like any other career option. That's all I applied for. And I told myself this is what I'm going to do. And I actually got provisionally accepted at WITS for a little bit up until our results came back. And to be fair, it's not like I did extremely bad in high school. I just got like high 70s, no distinctions. But it turns out that they sent out more provisional acceptances than there was actually space. So in January, I was like, what do you mean, Vince? Like, this is where I applied. And I didn't apply anywhere else. And I remember I went from Klerksdorp all the way to the campus, and I was there and I was standing this long queue, and they was like, sorry, we can't help you. And because I'm telling you, I was so traumatized. I was so gutted because all my friends were starting their classes, and I really couldn't apply anywhere else because the intakes have already been finalized. But a friend of mine told me about Monash University, and Monash at that time was under Australia, and it wasn't that well known. I think it was full of a lot of international students in 2014. So even like my other peers, they were like, "What is Monash?" I'm like, "I don't know, guys, but it's the only university that's available right now, and they start in March." And so I applied there. It was a very expensive school. But God willingly, my parents had to come through because I was not going to take a gap year. It just didn't look good for me at that time. I was like, there's no way I can't go to school. And when I got there, they asked me like, what do you want to study? And I was like, I want to study biochemical engineering. Do you guys offer it? They're like, no, sorry, we don't. We don't even know what that is. They're like, okay, what else? What else do you want to study? I'm like, so I don't know. I wanted to study biochemical engineering. If you don't offer it, I think I like maths. I'm just going to
Okay.
put it like that. I think mathematics is something that you can put me in. Then he recommended I do economics. Now,
Mm.
again, I didn't have like a business study background, so even economics, it sounded cool. I think that's how I ran my life. I was like, whatever sounds cool, I'm going to pursue. So I was like, okay, economics sounds like something I can flex with. So I did economics. And within the first couple of lessons, I was like, man, this is not going to work. Every day we were doing graphs. It was demand and supply. Every day, demand and supply statistics. I'm like, what is going on? But the nice thing is when you're doing a commerce degree, all the people that are doing commerce, even if their majors are accounting or like business management, we all do the same courses within that first semester. So I just so happened to do accounting. Now, I never said backstory. In high school, of my four combination that was crazy, accounting was my least favorite. I really resented it. I told myself I would burn my accounting books the minute I passed. And so it
And
was
did
such
you though, by the way?
I did not. And
Okay.
maybe the reason was God knew it was going to end in CSAs eventually. I just didn't.
Yeah.
So I swapped my major from economics to accounting in that first semester, going into the second semester. And that's how I landed up studying the accounting route. And I really was studying to enjoy it. It was very different from high school, where I feel like in high school, you do a lot of like bookkeeping, debtors ledger, creditors ledger, these weird things. But in varsity, when I was introduced to concepts like tax and auditing and management accounting, those were things that for me were I could apply my mind. I was actually using what I was doing in my maths background, where I'm critically thinking and solving problems. So I really did do well throughout my studies. And for people that don't know, the CA route is like such a long route. At that time, I didn't know it was called the CA route. I just changed my major to accounting. So when I graduated in my third year, I thought I was going to go start working. Like this is what I
So
envisioned.
so Lesego, you started studying in 2014,
That's
right?
correct.
So right away out of high school, and you started a financial accounting degree, or is
Yes. So
okay,
different
okay,
different universities call it different things. So
yes,
in
yes,
Monash, it was called Bachelor of Business Sciences
okay,
Accounting. Yeah.
okay. And then after that, you finish your three-year degree, and then you're like, "Let's go, boys! I'm gonna start working."
That's what I thought, Sergio. And then I was
Sheesh.
deceived because
Okay,
everybody was getting ready. They're like, okay, postgraduate. I was
yeah.
like, what do you mean postgraduate? They're like, no, there's another year. It's not done. Now I was like getting confused. I'm like, guys, I thought we were going to go work because I didn't do my research. I just thought I was doing like a
Y-
normal accounting degree. They're like, no, there's this year. It's called CTA. Some varsities call it PGDA. So CTA stands for Certificate Theory in Accounting, PGDA, Postgraduate Diploma in Accounting. And that year, the first 3 months, I was seeing flames. Sergio, I was like really good in my undergrad. I was getting like 90s and 80s. And I got my first tests and I was getting like low 40s, 50s. I was like, no.
Sheesh.
Can I tell you, I was the highest in my auditing marks with the 53%.
Oh my goodness.
I was
Okay.
like, no, switch it off. I don't want
Yeah.
any. And the lecturers were like, no, this is how this year usually is. It's such a difficult year. But I think I really was having an identity crisis at that point in time, because even throughout high school and even in my undergrad, academics were my thing. I think that's where I applied myself diligently, and I didn't identify the fact that for me, I used my academics to define who I was. So when the marks weren't speaking back to me, it's as if like as a person I had failed. And even at that time, I used to play netball even throughout university. But when I started getting those marks, I quit netball because I felt like a failure in everything, even though the other things were going great. But I think because of the fact that my academics were so rooted in my person, that everything else felt like it was a waste of time. So I legit changed my whole lifestyle, and I was wallowing in my depression of, I can't believe I'm getting these marks. And test after test after test, I'm getting these 40s. Sometimes they like hitting the 30s, and everybody's having a kumbaya session, like, yeah, me too. Oh, me too. I'm like, guys, this cannot be what we like bond over. This is not making sense. And I remember even calling my dad, having a meltdown, like a proper anxiety attack, telling him he needs to like take me out of school because I'm not gonna make it. And I think because of my track record, my dad just thought I'm just having a bad day. They like, you always do well. Maybe you just need to sleep it off. And I think at that time, I had developed such severe anxiety that I was legit having anxiety attacks almost every day, panic attacks. I was blacking out. And I remember the one time I was even studying with a friend of mine. And I hit a blank when she asked me a question, and I legit stopped breathing. But luckily, because she had like an oxygen mask, they're like trying to do like a mini CPR as like students. And none of this is even getting to my parents because I was so shameful of my marks that I really wasn't honest with what was going on in that year to my family. But to my friends at that time, they all knew that I was really struggling. And I think because everybody was struggling, we didn't think much of it up until it got to the end of the year and I failed my academic year. And when I failed that academic year, I was in complete denial because I'd never failed at anything in my life. Yes, I've done well, not like sometimes being super great, but to fail an academic year and having to face that reality for me was a shock. And then I think 2 weeks after I got my results for my postgraduate diploma saying that it failed, I passed a test I wasn't intending to pass. I found out that I was pregnant. And I was like, oh my goodness, now you are a real failure in life, like you don't deserve anything. And I think for me, the pregnancy was not even I think it was just cementing what I had already told myself about the whole year. I was like, it serves you right. You deserve to wear shame, and have it shown because one thing that people don't tell you about being pregnant when you're young is that you carry the shame on you. Like people know why you failed and they assume this is why you failed. You were busy getting pregnant. And that's the narrative that I was carrying in my mind. And when the next year came, I actually didn't go back to school. I was just so taken aback by the turn of events and going from captain of the netball team, tutor of accounting, this diligent girl to you failed and you're pregnant. It's such a contrast. And I remember the whole year in 2018, I was waking up watching Crime Investigation, crying, because I couldn't believe this. Like, this was my life. Most of my friends were either the ones that failed with me, went back to give it a second attempt, and then others started working because they had passed. And so for me, it was trying to wrestle through identity and saying, who am I really outside my academics? And that was a long journey. I think when it cracked for me was when my daughter was born because her name is actually Zoe, which means life. I think she reframed how I viewed things because now I had someone to be responsible for. It wasn't just about me, I couldn't just sit and be depressed and feel so sad for myself. It was like, okay, how do I mother this child and how do I provide for her? And yeah, and I remember I told my dad, I'm like, I'll make it worth your while. Please, can you take me back to school? It doesn't have to be a Monash because I know it was an expensive university. It can be UNISA. I could do distant learning. My daughter's like 2 months at this time, and I was like, I'll do it with her. It doesn't matter. Just I want to give it another shot.
Yeah.
My dad agreed, and I started my CTA year again. In 2019, my daughter was 4 months old. And at that time, I was so adamant in being a present mother that I had like a schedule of how my day was going to look like throughout that year, because I wanted to still breastfeed. I wanted to be active in her life. I wanted to do every new mother thing that I had Googled, because I was a Google mom, and I was like, breast milk is a good thing. You can't give formula, and I was trying to be a superhero in everything. And it was one of the toughest year of my life to date. It's 2024, but 2019 was such a humbling year, because it was the hardest year of my life, where I was trying to overcome the imposter syndrome of, how am I doing this degree again, or this postgraduate diploma again, knowing that I had failed before, and then seemingly with a child. And it was just a lot to take in. And every day I was like, Holy Spirit, you must sit in this chair and study on my behalf, because I am suffering. Every day felt more painful. Waking up at 3 a.m. to breastfeed, and then up at 6 to revise, and then 11 p.m. doing a night shift while my daughter was sleeping for 2 hours to like revise, and my days looked so crazy. But I think the discipline and the commitment of wanting to pass kept me going throughout the year. And I passed that year, and it was great. And I went to go work for one of the big four firms, got a contract with the big four firms. And I was so excited to be with people. I think what people don't understand in corporate is that when you get there, you don't know other people's story, right? So when I got there, I was more positive than necessary in a corporate space. And purely speaking, it was because I was by myself the year before. I was online studying, I was distant learning, I wasn't around people. So for me, I was just excited to be with people. I wasn't nervous about, oh my gosh, corporate is this big, bad place, and everybody's so serious. Everybody wants to get promoted. I was just happy to be outside the house, and I was happy to earn an income that could feed my child. I was so grateful for just being in those atmospheres. And I wrote my first board exam, did well, wrote my second board exam, almost didn't make it, but I made it. And I qualified at the end of 2022, and then got my psycho certificate in 2023. And I even stayed on at the Big Four to become a manager for a little bit. And then I went on to go work for an offshoring company that's based in Sunninghill, but my direct employer was all the way in London, which is amazing, because the CA stream opens you up to so many opportunities, whether it's financial security or just global recognition. I think it does so much for you. So I'm glad that I stuck it out throughout, but it was not easy. Oh my gosh.
So, so Lesego, amazing journey. I nearly started crying actually, and I'm being
Okay.
genuine. So it's just such a beautiful story of how resilient you were and how committed you were. And like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stay in this pit, and
Mm,
I'm gonna work myself out of this. And it's
yeah.
really such an inspirational story, and I can't wait for people to hear this. And
Mm,
a question I have is for, like, just to backtrack a little bit, is a lot of people find them in the space that you were. This is 2018, right, or 2019, and 2018, and you were down in the dumps. You were really not having the best time of your life, and how did you pull yourself out of that? Because like a lot of business owners and a lot of entrepreneurs or motivational speakers or people that just want to do something, they tend to want to find themselves in this space.
mm.
What was your secret to pull out of it?
I think, to be honest, it was not wanting it to continue anymore. I think sometimes you must ask yourself, what did I come into agreement with? Because I had to qualify my emotional states at that point in time. I had allowed myself to absorb so much depression and anxiety that was a comfort zone to an extent. It felt like when I was even having a good day, I was cheating myself out of the shame, because I was like, you don't deserve to be happy. Remember, you didn't pass, and there you are pregnant at 22. Like, why are you having such a great day? But I had to first come out of agreement with what I was already in agreement with for such a long time. And I had to have grace for myself. Like every day was different. But on the good days, I tried to maximize on my positivity, on wanting to be better. And for like a business owner, you might not be reaching the targets or the numbers that you'd want to reach, but you have to also learn to focus on what is going right. What progress did I make this week compared to last week? Trying to find a way to measure your progress is a good thing, because for me, how I measured my progress, because it was visual, it was my stomach. I had to look towards the fact that, okay, now if I focus on how big is she today and what is she learning, what organ am I producing today, and focusing on that as opposed to, oh my gosh, I still can't believe you failed. Because one thing that I realized is that you by default remind yourself of the bad thing that happened. And it's like a nag that you can't get rid of. And so you have to rewire yourself, but still have the grace for you to experience those bad moments, but don't let them stay longer than they need to. So I think for me, it was a gradual process. Hence, I was saying it was the whole of 2018, right? Because I wasn't also entertaining a lot of conversations with people outside my situation, because I wasn't looking for pity at that point in time. I also wasn't looking for other people's opinions, because mine were already weighty. I didn't need another voice to try to help me wrestle through it or help me walk me through it. I had to participate in my own redemption. And I think even as an entrepreneur, it's such a difficult thing for me myself. Learning entrepreneurial skills, I'm realizing I am my own um, encourager and I am my own enemy at the same time. Who takes the platform on a certain day depends on me still. So I need to decide, okay, today I'm going to have structure. I'm going to focus on what's going right. I'm going to celebrate the small wins. I am going to look forward to the better. I am not going to focus on what has already passed. And so for people that are in that space, you just need to make sure that you are affording yourself the grace and time. Time really does help, but don't allow the time to work against you, where you stay in agreement with what's already being done. Come out of agreement with that and look toward what goodness can come out of
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah, I think so many people just decide to make their current situation their reality, and they're just like, no, this is my reality now. This is the card I've been dealt with, and I'm gonna play it. And they stick with that hand instead of saying, listen, I'm gonna play until I get a new set of cards in my hand. I'm gonna keep pushing, I'm gonna keep grafting, I'm gonna keep hungry or stay hungry until something happens. And it's just so inspiring hearing, like, listen, you could have just sat there and done nothing and just said, this is my card. This is my story now. I'm out. Cheers, guys. And all my dreams, all my ambitions down the drain, and I'm just going to do nothing. So thank you, Lesego, for. No, there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to get out of that rut. So this is really inspiring. So thank you. So yeah. So Lesego, with that being said, you started a business, if I'm not mistaken, called LGC, Learning, Growth, and Contribution. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, my baby, my very, very baby. So LGC was, at first, it's like an online platform that I use both on my YouTube as well as on my LinkedIn to share my story. I found that a lot of the lessons that I learned along the way made me stand out in a corporate space. The fact that I had to have my own disciplines, the fact that I had to keep my own timelines, the fact that I was forced to consume information in short spaces of time because I had a baby to attend to. Those soft skills made me stand out in a corporate space. And I thought it wasn't the greatest thing. Like I was very surprised that people um, didn't have those same aspects. Communication, for example, was something that came naturally to me because I was always on my laptop. And so when I had to speak to my facilitators, I had to always be on a phone, on a laptop. And it just so happened that 2020, when I started working, was COVID, and I felt like I had like an advantage because what I was doing the year before in 2019, I felt like it was a setup for 2020 because that was the new way of working. Can you have self-discipline? Can you self-motivate? And can you keep to deadlines and timelines? And those things came naturally to me because of my experience. So I started sharing majority of those lessons on my online platforms. So on YouTube, I just told people, okay, the journey to being a CASA wasn't something that was readily available. If you come from like a small town, because there aren't a lot of like corporate atmospheres in smaller towns, right? So I found that I didn't know much about the CA journey because I didn't have access to that information. I also didn't know people in that space. So all I wanted to do on my platform was to share about the CASA journey, what it takes, how does it work, how to overcome the CTA year if you're going to do it the second time around, how to act in a corporate space because I was doing well in that space, and how to have the soft skills, how to make the networks, and that's what I did on my online platforms, whether it was YouTube or LinkedIn, and it started picking up slowly but surely. But there was always something about me wanting to take it offline because I think when you have online presence, social media might be deceiving. I think some people just come on social media and they stick to the entertainment side of it. And even though my content felt educational, I felt like it wasn't getting the impact that I wanted it to have. And I also wasn't doing it for views. I wanted to actually help someone and try to speak life back into their situations. And so I decided to take it offline this year and be active in my community and go out into schools and potentially go into doing workshops and mentoring programs, because I have mentored a lot of people throughout my career where I help them in their board exams or even through their academics and their varsity journeys. But I actually wanted it to be formalized. I actually wanted to offer this service and make myself available and build systems and networks around how I can better do this. So the plunge that I took not so long ago, I think end of May, I decided to leave my 9 to 5 a little bit and wear my entrepreneurial hat. I feel like CAs, somebody said this to me the other day and it was like such a cool term. I was like, I'm going to coin this. They're like, CAs are money doctors. And I was like, okay, since I'm a money doctor, I know how to make money. I just need to believe I can make money for myself. So I was like, okay, let's go be a money doctor and see whether you can take your business offline and actually learn to offer equality service. So I am in the process of making sure that my baby develops with time, and I am glad that I have the physical aspect of what a baby is like. So every time I want to rush it, I have to remember, oh my gosh, so we had to first crawl and then only walk and then only, because sometimes as entrepreneurs, we just wanted to pick up like this, man. Like if I could just let my business start right now and launch and get the numbers, it
Yeah.
would be great. But the reality is these things take time. They take research, they take discipline, they take you having to understand your audience, even things like your audience. I thought I understood my audience. And then when I'm looking at the stats, I'm like, my audience is everywhere. How do I refine this?
Yeah.
How do I make this make sense? So I'm really trying to make sure that I am crafting my baby in such a way that it will mature gracefully and not too quickly and
Sure.
fall apart. Yeah.
So how do you keep yourself from pushing too fast, too quickly, and saying, "Listen, I want everything just to fall into place by the end of this month," and not rushing the process? Because I 100% agree with you
Mm,
that it's a process. You need to crawl before you walk, and you need to
mm,
walk before you start running. So how do you
yeah.
how do you control that?
I think you have to pay attention to your reality, man. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we are very fatalistic. We like, yes, we're going to do this. And yes, I am doing this. But when you pay attention to what's actually happening, you get humbled very quickly. you know, and I've been humbled even in this process, thinking that I thought even being a money doctor, this should come easy to me. But these are very delicate things that you are actioning out, and it takes time having to action them out or execute them in a way that speaks to the vision that you have, right? Because everyone can have a business plan and a business proposal, even with AI taking the forefront. These are easy things to concoct, right? The part that is dribbling everyone is the execution and having the patience to see it out, because these fast things, as fast as they go up, is as fast as they quickly come crumbling down. So I pay attention to reality. Like, I have to be honest with myself and say, why do I want this to happen now? Like, what is it going to achieve right now at this point in time? And I realized absolutely nothing, because I would have not learned any character traits. I wouldn't have learned how to be patient. I wouldn't have learned a different skill. But when I pay attention to my reality, I see the skills that I'm building. I see how disciplined I am actually becoming while I'm waiting out for the numbers to catch up. Because one thing that people don't realize is that when things take off, they take off. And for you to be a success, I believe it's not about the rise up instantly. It's about, can you sustain that business? Can you keep it for the long run? No company wants to exist for now. Like, even in an audit term, we say every company must be a going concern. We must be able to exist beyond even this 12-month period. And that's how I view the things that I do on an everyday. I'm not trying to have a quick fix. I want sustainability. I want longevity in the things that I'm doing. And so those things require an investment, and time is such an important commodity that people just want to overtake, but you can't. These are biblical principles that, for me, sometimes I'm like, God also humbles me. It's like, he was like, there will be times and there will be seasons. Even nature follows order. Who am I to want to even go against the things of nature? We have summer, we have autumn, we have spring, we have winter, we have all these seasons. And here I am just wanting to have a summer all day in my business when that
Oh.
doesn't happen.
I just want to say thanks to everyone for listening. And I just want to encourage everyone just to subscribe, go to our social media pages, Instagram, LinkedIn. And if you guys are keen on booking a call with us, to do a session with us and just have good chats, book a call on our Linktree link, and see you guys in the next one. Thanks.